Time to tackle hypocrisy once again between the sexes. Women have invaded men's spaces decades ago. And what we got? A video where some woman complains about men invading theirs, right? So first, before we get into that, look at this. 40 years after winning the right to report in men's locker rooms, that's not the right. That's a privilege. Melissa Ludke still sees work to be done. See, this is an act of dominance, right? So when they say they want the right to enter men's locker rooms, they're saying they want the right to have dominance over men. You're vulnerable and naked. Good. I get to barge right in and talk to you and look you all over when I want to, right? Now, she was told that she could never again enter or report on the MLB locker rooms ever, right? She was told that for good reason. She doesn't belong there, right? In response, Ludke and her employer, Sports Illustrated, filed a civil rights suit against him, citing discrimination. It is discrimination, proper discrimination. You don't belong in there, right? And the thing is, guys, men would actually be all right with it if it was for good reasons. Like if she was just lusting after men. If she said, I love the look of men's naked bodies and I want to see them and I'm turned on by men and I love men, that men would accept that. But it's not that. She might actually despise the look of men. But the point of her doing this is dominance. No, no, no. You guys, I want the status of being a reporter. You guys are getting in the way by not exposing yourself to me when I want you to. And so I'm going to barge in there and I'm going to make a lawsuit. The fact that this lawsuit actually worked shows you what society thinks of men, right? Now we'll get into these scumbags, and these are feminists, so they're absolute scumbags, and how they're complaining that some guys are doing the same to them in return 40 years later. The sad part, they're not even officially guys. They're guys claiming to be women, right? And they claim on a legal battle which could threaten women's rights globally. See, all women's rights, right? And worldwide.
Let's go and get our rights back. Like, let's just use it, get our rights back, and end this madness so we can all move on with our lives. The reasons for female-only spaces have not gone away.
Okay, so the reasons for women-only spaces, she'll lie and say because men are dangerous, right? But what it is, women want to be free to show their true colors. Why? Because guys get into their spaces and find out how women really feel about us. And they start calling these assholes out. That's what these two women are. They're assholes. These KKKers. They start calling them out and saying, wow, women really are garbage. They really see us men as subhuman. And that's why they need their spaces. That and the fact they don't like men anyway. They don't like men and they want to be free to show their true colors and say men are garbage.
We should not be in a position to have to justify them. I'm sick of when people go, but why do you need a female-only space? Because we want them.
Good. So that's exactly what men should be saying to women. We want men-only spaces because we want them. And that's the only reason we need them. So you see, there's the hypocrisy.
So in 2020, I effectively launched a female-only social networking app where women could find roommates and freelance work and lesbian
freelance only work, right? So they network with one another, right? The only problem is these female only spaces, they don't network just to get themselves easy jobs, which they do. They network to hashtag me too innocent men. That's why they shouldn't be allowed.
dating and connect, like just for emotional support or have a voice. We had like a female only Twitter style feed, things like that. Then in 2022, I got an Australian human rights complaint from an individual named Roxy Tickle. It was for gender identity discrimination, and it was against both Giggle and myself. So it's two respondents in the case, even though I am the CEO of Giggle. And basically, with how it works in the Australian Human Rights Commission, you can settle something before going to court. In this case, because it was the Australian Human Rights Commission, not a state-based one, it would be straight to federal court. And the conditions for conciliation were so ludicrous, basically, that I would have to let him on. I should say he's a man who claims to be a woman. I would have to let him on all men.
Right, and this is your fault, asshole. Because this is what's happened, guys. These women, the very one that's talking, they'll get together. They've grabbed up all the gay men and trans men and women and men of color and use them as attack dogs against other men, right? Now they got to pretend that that's not what it's about. Now that these attack dogs are biting them too, and now they're saying this isn't right.
Men who claim to be women go to sex and gender education, which could only be re-education, because I know about sex
I'm sorry,
and gender.
tell me that again. You would be sent on a course.
Yes.
Which would educate you in gender identity.
Basic.
So you're doing exactly what you do to the average male student in universities. So it looks good on these assholes. I'm through using polite words for these sexist scumfucks.
It could only be re-education, because what else would it be?
Reprogramming?
Yeah, basically.
Right.
And then the other.
Of course, it wouldn't work. The idea is they're doing to you what you do to men. It's an exercise in humiliation. You've got to go and pretend that you agree with them before you can go on, and it doesn't change anything about your mindset. But you were shown who you are. You have been dominated.
The last condition, which this one bothered me the most, actually. Well, not the most, but more than the other, like letting him on. But it was that I would have to moderate the content of what women would say so not to offend men who claim to be women.
Wow. So in other words, you're going to be treated like a man. This guy was switching places with you. He was going to take on the woman's role, the role of dominance, of dominant partner, and you were going to take on the male role, gender role, which you despise and want men to follow.
And so I was like, this, we'd created this place where women could have a voice and speak.
You were going to be told to know your place. N-word. That's what's going on here.
Freely away from men, and then suddenly there was this man saying, well, no, not only am I going to be there, but I'm going to control what you say. So I said no.
Good on him. Good on him. Because I feel no sympathy for the KKK.
To conciliation. I was 15 weeks pregnant when I got the AHRC complaint.
And women, all these women do the same thing, right? I was pregnant. What does your pregnancy got to do with this? Nothing.
And by this time of going back and forth, I was end of second trimester going into third, and
nobody cares about your pregnancy, lady. Doesn't make you any more vulnerable. You're just as much of a scumbag pregnant as non-pregnant.
I was having a geriatric pregnancy because I was 37.
It's a lovely way of explaining a slightly older pregnancy.
It's literally,
right.
Yeah, very typical, right, guys? Women do not want babies. At least not when they're 21, when they're having the best time of the years. They wait until they are older and they find a high status enough man to entrap with a baby, right? And by the way, this isn't healthy for children, right? It increases the chances of birth defects as women get older. So again, the child doesn't matter. It only matters but what they want at the time that they want it.
And it's the next issue after this.
Right.
That's the next issue I'm going to focus on, changing that. But so I said no to conciliation because I knew that I wouldn't agree to any of it. So there was no point sitting in a room going back and forth. I was never going to agree to it.
I wish men would be more like this. Right. The sad part is men want women around, so they always end up throwing each other under the bus to have monsters like this in their space. This woman is a monster. She's a subhuman.
So then from that, he had 60 days to file in federal court, which he did.
Hang on a minute. Let's go back a little bit. Because
Hold on, I can't believe that I was being treated like a peasant, like a mere man.
I'm sitting here talking to you. I'm known to be a very, very hardline, uncompromising feminist.
Yeah, thank you for admitting that you're a real lowlife.
I'm a lesbian. I've been in the trenches arguing with men about rape and domestic violence and misogyny
Yeah, in other words, you're in the trenches demonizing men, right? And they didn't want to take it, right?
and the like. Okay, so you're clearly an extremely strong, determined woman. But
She's so strong, she's got to hide behind her baby. I was pregnant when this was happening to me. And she's also going to admit that she had an easy time getting a high status job. That's how strong she is.
you didn't have that background in this, did you? Weren't you a Hollywood screenwriter at some stage?
Yeah.
But you came to your feminist consciousness, from what I've
She came to her feminist consciousness. What I tell you guys over and over again, feminism comes from women. It doesn't brainwash women. Women like the idea. Why? Because they don't like us. Women hate men. As soon as this ideology comes up, they snatch on it because that speaks for their mind, right? There is no male equivalent of feminism. None. Men love women.
heard, and we've talked before, and I've read lots about your case. You're someone who has none of it. You will not take this from men, will you?
No.
Just give us a bit about your background from Hollywood.
So I went to Hollywood when I was 24. I stopped doing a master's degree in philosophy. I stopped one credit shy. I really didn't.
Wow, a master's degree in philosophy. That is so useful to the world and not at all typical of what women choose. An easy, an easy subject that you just have to shoot your mouth off about.
Didn't like the course I had to, last one I had to do, and I was like, oh, no. And I got on a plane and I went to Hollywood. I knew two people, and I was like, I'm going to go and write movies. How hard can it be? And it turns out it was actually relatively easy for me to get into the industry. It took 1 year.
Wow, you're only 24, you have no experience, and it was relatively easy for you to get into a job, a career that men struggle their whole lives to get into. Wow, the patriarchy certainly is, lazy in the modern era, isn't it?
For me to sell my first script, which I got signed to one of the biggest talent agencies. I got a manager.
Holy shit, really? She was just, the red carpet was just rolled out. All you average guys that are struggling with life, look at this monster, this man hater. The red carpet was rolled out for her, right? And then you've got to listen to these monsters go on about the patriarchy.
I got a proper working visa, and that working visa, I was on an O1 visa, and I could only make money selling screenplays. I couldn't even, there were certain deals that would happen later on where they.
So why is this a complaint? You went to a foreign country, you were allowed to get in there, and you were allowed to do a job that you wanted to do. Notice everyone that even that's not good enough for these freaking queens.
They were trying to get me on as like a associate producer or something, and I couldn't because my visa was screenwriting. And now, like almost 40, look, I can sort of understand a lot of things a lot more. I was so naive going over there and actually putting myself in an incredibly vulnerable position. I thought I was.
What are you talking about, you jackass? You went over there in a privileged position, getting into a career that men would beg to get into. Screw you.
So empowered and strong going and brave going over there. But no.
Which you were.
Well, no, she wasn't brave. The red carpet was rolled out for this man hater. She wasn't brave.
But what I was actually effectively did is I put myself in a situation where, because I could only make money doing this one thing, it meant a lot of people had control over my life. I didn't.
No. This woman is in no worse position than any male screenwriter. Matter of fact, she's an above average. Like I said, most men have to struggle and get really lucky. They don't get the red carpet rolled out. And all kinds of, look how many guys wrote a book, right? And when it was adapted to screen, they weren't happy. But they had to accept that. So this woman is just suffering par for the course. And she's trying to paint herself as a victim.
And so when I got into the industry, that's kind of when the nightmare started. This would have, by the time I was in the industry, it's like 2010, 2011. This is pre-Me Too. So all the horror stories are true.
Yeah, women were throwing themselves at guys to get an easy gig. There's a lot of prostitution going on with actresses, just like now, all right? So she's saying her complaint is that there was no Me Too to punish the men after the woman got everything out of them that she wanted.
It was horrific. And the reality is most screenwriters are men. So
the reality is men have to work for a living, right? And men have to achieve. They're not just going to give a freebie, right? They've got to go there and actually produce work that people want to watch and listen to. Unlike you man hater.
There are obviously women screenwriters, and there's some that are really, really successful.
Okay, then shut your mouth, you liar. All you're saying by most is that men have to work for a living. If I get a free paycheck, I don't care if I'm a screenwriter. You dipshit.
But a 27-year-old Australian sitting there talking about, and I would write romantic comedies, and they were always about strong but flawed women, and they were always, sort of sometimes they'd be sexually liberated or something. And I remember my manager one time saying that's your brand, sex is your brand. And I was like, but it is.
Yeah, it is your brand. That's all these women are. They're female. If you took away their identity as female, as their sex, they would commit suicide. They would throw themselves off buildings. They'd have nothing left to them. And these women, that's what they write about, relationships and sex.
It isn't. I just wrote one movie about the stud versus slut mentality, but it's not my brand. That's just one script. My brand is strong but flawed women. And
yeah. No, that's your brand. He got you right. Because you're strong women. Do they do anything? Do they climb mountains or conquer the ocean? No, they deal with relationships. They deal with men.
And so when you sell a script or you put a spec script out into the industry, you have to go to general meetings. And sometimes you can do 5 of them a day, and it's, you've got to go and sit there.
I don't know how much I want to hear about this horseshit. I'll skim ahead, guys, because this is almost 40 minutes of hateful drivel against us. Oh, guys, I didn't really watch this yet, so I'm not sure what parts are appropriate. Let's hear this.
I'm not taking this.
100%. In the sense of my mentality is really shitty men destroyed the first thing I wanted to do professionally. I'm not letting it happen again.
Okay, I'm going to translate that. She failed. She was no good as a screenwriter. She couldn't compete with the men that fought to get there. Right. Men didn't destroy anything. This woman's just a loser. She's a typical female loser.
Absolutely no way. I don't have a third idea.
Right. It's a good idea.
But it's I have actually spent my professional life women centered in some way, whether it was, well, first of all, it was, I wanted to write movies about them. I was very much write what you know. So I was like, I'll write about being a woman. But
Like I said, guys, if she has no identity as a woman, she has no identity at all. She has nothing beyond her sex.
and then, you
She
know,
has nothing to say about the world. She has nothing to say about the world beyond herself as a person. And she's not even a human being. She's just a gender to herself.
was creating an app for women, which is very connected to that, because when I was in therapy,
What do you do for a living? You created an app for a woman. Where were you? How are you paying your bills, right? And you're pregnant, right? So you're leeching off a man. So typical.
to recover from,
This man hater is leeching off a man. What I tell you guys, these women are all the same. Sadly, so are men. Some guy said yes to this scumbag.
what had happened in Hollywood. It was my therapist who said you need a strong female support network in your life, and it was the light bulb moment. I was like, you're right. What happened in Hollywood, it would have been quite different if all of us women were connected, where the men didn't know what we were talking about, and we could all share our.
What I tell you, right? These scumfucks, they invade our spaces to dominate. And now these women want to make sure that they can conspire against men, the people who love them unconditionally, conspire against us because they hate our guts.
Our stories, it would have been a totally different situation, because that's what Me Too highlighted, is that women didn't know it was happening to everyone else. So
No. Women didn't realize that they weren't able to create the lynch mob that they can now. That's what's going on here. It's not due to ignorance. It's just inability. They always knew how each other thought, and they just couldn't get enough women together now. Now they can do it online and get masses. Guys, I want you to take a look at this. This is what women think of us. They hate our guts. This is the average woman. She wasn't a feminist before. She got married and leeched off a man, had her babies late in life, took up the same stereotypical gender roles that women do, and now she's getting together with other hateful women and attacking men, right? Now, I don't want to make this video too long, and I could go further, but I'm sorry, I'm just getting too riled up over this. This person right here is a scumbag, a real lowlife. And the person she's talking to is also a lowlife. Talk about a pair of subhumans. Think about it. This woman was born in an incredibly privileged position that men fight wars to try and get into. And here she is. She gets married to a man, leeches off him, and takes advantage of men and attacks us at every moment. Like, wake up, guys. This is what women are. This is what they think of us. Fuck this woman. And also, she's empty. She failed at her career because she couldn't screenwrite, because she had no talent and she had nothing to say. She had nothing to say that was worthwhile. And all she is to herself is female and nothing else. That's all she is. There's nothing else to her. So I'll say, yeah, I'm glad I wasn't born female. You think that's all my identity would be if I was born a girl, is to say I'm female and that's it? Women are fucking losers.